It's time for Myth of the Week.
Yeah, we had a couple comments come in. Daniel says he's using his mind for massive change orders. So yeah, we're constantly getting change orders. Like, I always hate that. Like, if you didn't want a change order, why'd you change your mind? And yeah, and Michael says it's hard to illustrate to the whole crowd. And yeah, I would agree with that statement. But welcome to the Myth of the Week. We have a great one this week. This was an actual thing that happened live, and it was really funny. I was actually in Mike Holt's forum, and he sent me a thing. We were arguing over 210.8F, and he sent me this thing, and then all of a sudden he went on NEC Live, and then all the arrow just like disappeared. So we brought that audio this week that we'll share with you here in a minute. But the Myth of the Week, number 118, true or false, the outlet on an individual branch circuit is always located at the disconnect on hardwired utilization equipment. And, you know, I guess I'm going to have to say that that's false. It's not always located there. Now, we found some instances where it could be located there. But, you know, it's just, like I say, this is kind of like a gray area. It's been really tough for me, especially, like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with 210.8F. I mean, everyone says it's going to stay in. It's not going anywhere. And, you know, it's hard to say what's really going to happen, but like I say, in my opinion, you remove the outlet to remove the hazard of personnel. But, you know, they're saying that you have to have an outlet on individual branch circuit because it's a branch circuit and, you know, all this different stuff. But I don't know if you saw, James, but they resolved my public input to add outlet to individual branch circuit, and they said it is not required for the outlet to exist as long as it's connected to an individual, as long as it's connected to one piece of utilization equipment. So that's going to be interesting how they deal with that, because I thought it was required to exist on every branch circuit, you know?
Yeah. Well, I want to start first. I want to start with some audio that was done a while back on NEC Live. That
I love Corey's response, man. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to play this, let everybody hear this, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to explain a couple of things, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go ahead and let's start this audio track and let everybody listen.
You got to go to Article 100 to find what an outlet is. An outlet is the point where you receive power. So let's go back up here. Corey, maybe you can help me with this. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Okay. Is the disconnect the outlet? Or is it the wires that's coming off of the liquid type, the outlet?
I'll let you answer that, Mike. I'm not going to get painted into a corner on that one, but thanks for asking.
You know what I did? In my 20 book? I pointed to the disconnect and I said this was an outlet.
Yeah.
And then I forgot where it was. I saw something somewhere and I'm like, the guy said, no, this is the outlet because this is the point where the equipment is receiving its supply. So what I did, Corey, is I removed all pointers on my graphic. So I'm afraid to point here, but watch this, Corey. If you read this, you don't even know what I'm talking about because I don't even identify what an outlet is. So I think what I'm going to do. Mario, if you're watching this, I'm going to point to the disconnect just only because it makes it simpler to understand. But if anybody says, well, I think the outlet is right here, I'm going to like, well, you're. So I'm sure in 2026, we're going to have a definition of what an outlet is that we had for 125 years that we had no question on. There was no problem. Now we don't know what an outlet is. At least I don't know. Right?
Mike, while we were talking, too, Ryan Jackson chimed in and he had the information. He said that 210.8F has 3 appeals going to the Standard Council as of today when he looked today. So this is still, it continues to be a hot topic, understandably so. But you know, it's important to keep in mind. I mean, I get everybody is passionate in this industry, and that's why I love the industry. That's why we all love the industry. This is a process, right, guys? So, you know, people submit public inputs. It gets vetted at many levels. It goes through the process. It goes before code making panels that are huge intermixed, way. So it's not loaded in one thing, it's spread out across the court. So everybody has to get through this whole process to get to where we are. And we've had plenty of times, in the NEC where we come back through and went, or the public has came back through and said, no, we didn't get it right. Let's fix it. Right. So NFPA does not create this, does not do that. We just are the gatekeepers essentially. Right. So the process is what's so important to this and why everybody needs to get involved in this, because, everybody has an opinion and it's got to go through. And sometimes we're like, hey, we need to tweak this, or hey, we didn't get this right. And then it's got to get vetted and brought back up the next cycle. So, we've just got to go through the process and live with what we have, what comes out the side of the process until we can change it again, if need be.
All right. Now, that was what would make them both outlets, it would seem. Okay. Now, I want to touch base on a couple of things. First of all, the one thing he said, or could it be the point where the conductors leave the flex? I mean, what are you saying there? Are you saying we just have a free floating outlet? It just exists in a infinite space. It's just magically there. I can't even believe he made that statement, to be honest. Sure. I've never heard anything like it. But I will say this. The reason that they got to that point was because this argument started when Bill had me on his podcast. It's been quite a few years ago, and he was asking me about GFCI protection for AC.
Well, it was funny because you didn't even know. I kind of blindsided you, and you didn't even know about it. And the whole thing was, I was saying that the disconnect can't be an outlet because it's a switching device. Yeah. And you're like, what? Those guys are calling that an outlet?
Yeah. Funny. And I said, you look at our code change book, we just dismissed it because there is no outlet there. There's no GFCI protection required. That's where we stood at the first. And then as soon as that come out, I started getting attacked. Well, as soon as I started getting attacked was first they told me it was at the disconnecting means on the load side, and I said, no, it isn't. I said, if you go look at the definition for a disconnecting means, it says a device or group of devices. And I said, you go look at a device. I said, if you're going to say that, you can say the circuit breaker's an outlet. And
and Michael's saying that same thing. And thanks for the great comments, Michael. That's exactly what we're saying is, they have to give like a location of where that outlet is. You can't just say it's the wires that leave the seal tight, in the unit. And, like the reason they're doing that is just the same reason like where you got called out by Mr. Research. And, he said that it's the point where the wires connect and the terminals and all that. And they rejected it.
Yeah, they rejected everything that, well, I'll get to that point. I said, well, I'll just go ahead and comment on that. So, he wrote a proposal, public input, and basically called me out and said an author and instructor out there that's well known is saying there's no outlet, and apparently he doesn't know what he's doing. He said this will help clarify, basically saying that where the wires connect. And they said, no, that isn't right. They rejected it. So then they come back on me and they said, well, it was already perfectly explained. Therefore, that's why they rejected it. I said, well, that's not what they said. So, but to make a long story short, so we got into that. Then they went to the AC unit and I said, now if you go look at the definitions in the code, I said, you have an outlet that's outside. I said, does that outlet have to be weatherproof? They said, what the hell's that got to do with it? I said, well, you're calling it an outlet and you're applying the NEC. Therefore, the manufacturer, when they design that equipment and get a listing and labeling, they have to look at the National Electrical Code. And if you go look at OSHA 1910.7, it's very specific that they have to consult the code. Well, they don't call it an outlet. Therefore, they don't have to worry about it being weatherproof because it's not. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's
we've covered this before. That wiring compartment on the AC unit, I've done a lot of research. That's considered a dry location by the manufacturer.
That's right. And I said that. So then the next thing happened. They went to where the wiring method itself connected to the AC unit. So there was arguments back and forth, but every time they came up with something, I explained my position on it. Okay. Now I want to show a couple of things here. Now this happened in the 2026, and uh, this is the one that Bill submitted here, and they gave a resolution. He come in to change this. I couldn't get everything up on the screen. I actually had to type some of this in because it went so far y'all wouldn't be able to see it. But they basically said the proposed language does not add clarity. Now, this particular definition is under the purview of Code Making Panel 2, who is pushing 210.8F. Okay, and so the interesting part about this is when it first came in, I specifically stated I doubt they'll even have compatibility to the AC unit by 2029. They told me I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. It'll happen in 2026. Well, that didn't happen. And they said it would happen in 2023. They said it was going to happen. And I said,
it's not going to happen by January 1st, 2026.
No, it isn't.
But I like this, how it says, it is not necessary that only one outlet exists. So right there, I mean, that tells you that that's a totally different branch circuit. Then why would you need a different definition? You can just call them all branch circuits.
Yeah, well, the thing that gets me here, they tell you an individual branch circuit is a branch circuit that supplies only one utilization equipment. You wanted it to say outlet. Well, what's the difference? Why can't I just put outlet there? Let's get off utilization equipment. It's an outlet anyway. And then, like you said, they turn around and say, and it is not necessary that only one outlet exists. What?
Yeah, so that tells me that.
First of all, I want to ask this. If you got only one piece of utilization equipment, how are you going to have two outlets there?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I don't understand what they're saying here, but it says it is not necessary that only one outlet exists as long as the individual branch circuit is serving one utilization equipment. Well, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like the definition for a branch circuit.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that sounds like. So, what they realize here, they got a problem between what branch circuit says and what individual branch circuit says. The reason this is an individual branch circuit is because it's just feeding utilization equipment. And utilization equipment, if you're hardwiring, it doesn't have an outlet. But now, if I want to take and I want to go over and hit a plug, and I'm only feeding one piece of utilization equipment there that I'm going to cord and plug connect, then you have an outlet.
Dude, okay? That's a funny comment, Michael. We think inlets are outlets. They're a point on the wiring system where current is taken or given. So.
Well, I want to show another portion here. Now, this is the one that I submitted on the disconnecting means. Now, I did put it in the information note because I want to make sure I got a comment back on this. And they did exactly what I wanted them to do. They say here in the resolution, they say the load side of a disconnecting means is not always the outlet. Okay, now that becomes interesting because now they're saying that the disconnecting means could be an outlet. Well, how is that possible? That is the best part of this. So, and this goes to my arguments right here I've been making. I'm saying the utilization equipment doesn't have an outlet. Okay. Now I'm gonna ask this for the audience that's listening. If I go over and I have, let's say I have a switch over here on the wall, and I'm coming from that switch and I'm wiring directly from that switch to say a 2x4 fluorescent light. Is that fluorescent lighting there? Is that considered utilization equipment?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. I state right here at this point that right there, which I've been maintaining this whole time, this is a type of insulation here where they say the load side of a disconnecting means is not always outlet. I'm saying this is a point where you actually have an outlet like you do a receptacle outlet. You've got a device there that's in what? The
An
box.
outlet.
That's right. There's
An
a box
outlet
there.
box.
Outlet box, which is what I've been saying. No different if I went up there. Now, let me ask you this. If I went up there and I put a box in the ceiling and then fed that fluorescent fixture, where's the outlet now?
The box.
It's at the box. Because you go look at 314.23, that lays that out. Okay?
Sure.
Now,
Yeah.
if I'm coming strictly from this disconnecting means the one thing that is held common with all this, there's a box there. Okay? So
Yeah.
I have a box, and guess what I have there? A disconnecting means, which is a device. And from that device, I'm feeding over to that light fixture. That's where I would take and have an outlet in this type of installation. And
But
this,
see, what I like about this, James, I actually looked at your public input, and I actually wrote the myth directly off of this. Because
Yeah.
I said it's always an outlet, you
Sure.
know? And then Mike Holt was like, well, I put the arrow pointing at the disconnect because I don't know. And I
Sure.
just thought that was funny, you know? It just...
well, that goes. That's why I wanted to play that, because he doesn't know. That's apparent. He doesn't know, because I mean he's flip flopping back and forth. He doesn't know what to put, and
Yeah.
and I've always maintained, and I'm giving examples of why I believe what I believe. Now, if the code making panel doesn't agree with it, that's fine with me. But as of right now, I'm giving definitive proof based off some resolutions that have been done here by the committee statement. And I would encourage everybody, I didn't put it in there, but go read where I did device too. See,
Yeah.
you can actually at a point have a device as an outlet also. Well, how is that? Well, you got a receptacle there. That receptacle's put where? In a box, which is the outlet. That's a receptacle outlet. The same over here with a switch. I go over there, I put a box. That's my outlet box there. Now, if I take and put a disconnect there that comes in an enclosure, that's not an outlet. That's an assembly. You
Sure.
see what I'm saying? And that is the difference. That's why it's not always an outlet. If it's an assembly, it can't be an outlet. And if you go look
Sure.
at the manufacturer's instructions, they don't call it an outlet on the load side. Nowhere in those manufacturer's instructions does it make such a statement. And that's why.
And the
Go
one
ahead.
thing that I noticed is, and this is one thing that when I look at it, so when this first came in, it was like, all right, 210.8F covers all outdoor outlets, and me and you were like, oh, that's cool. And then they're like, oh, this includes hardwired utilization equipment. We're like, wait a minute, what? And we're like, where's the outlet? You know, and like, where's the outlet that you need to protect personnel from, you know, this hazard that happened in 2007, you know?
Mhm.
Like, so you're telling me you waited 5 code cycles to get this in there? Like, wow, that's a real rush to get it in there, you know? But my whole thing, that my whole reasoning is, so right in our bedroom we have a window shaker that's got a GFPE on it that's 10 foot away from our head, you know? And that's totally fine. But you're saying this box that's on the side of our house that cools our whole house that nobody ever goes around, that's got to be on Class A?
Mhm.
You know, I mean, to me, that's just asinine.
Let me take that
know.
a step further since you're talking about that. You know, he brought up Brian Jackson there in audio. Well, let me tell you what happened there. All right.
Oh, yeah?
There
Remember
was
that.
there was a task group that was formed to go in and check all these AC units. They did it in Houston. There was like 100 and something AC units they checked, and they submitted. Now, I want you to understand what I'm saying. When they submitted that documentation, that was technical merit testing and everything that was done to make this determination. Now, let me tell you what happened. The code making panel too, and this is where I take issue. They took and rejected that TIA and they wrote their own TIA. Now, this is the interesting part. They wrote a TIA that had no technical merit at all. All right. I've been in the code making process a long time. when the task group comes in and they got technical merit showing everything, that's usually what you go off of. I've never seen this before. Okay. They reject it. And then apparently Ryan Jackson got on the General Assembly and he gave this big, and you had, who was it? Thomas Dimitrov said he did a mic drop. Well, we said, tell us what that mic drop was. Well, they didn't comment on anything. He apparently did his mic drop for this TIA to pass. Well, as soon as that happened, I started getting bombarded by all these guys over at ECD telling me, see there, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. I said, it ain't going to pass. And they said, that shows you don't know the code-making process. I said, once it gets to Standards Council, I said, they didn't have the technical merit to do what they did. I said, it'll be rejected, and the Standards Council will accept the TIA that was submitted by the task group because it had the technical merit. And they said, you'll see, you don't know nothing. You're just a blowhard. Call me all kinds, and they called me a lot worse than that. And I was okay.
Like they were attacking me too, you know. And the thing was that, like, well, it was probably because I was making all these memes and stuff, and I was like, oh, the mic drop, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because we've called this out a lot of times, and I thought it was interesting because I went and I submitted my public input to delete 210.8F, and they never mentioned the death from electrocution as an example before, which it was a tragic death. You know, a kid died and he was jumping a 6-foot fence. He jumped on an AC unit. He crushed the AC unit. It crushed the seal tight, lost the ground reference, and killed him. You know, that's horrible. But the whole thing was that they saw this as an opportunity to make money, to, you know, fund products, you know, and to me, that's where it's just despicable. You know, I mean, the whole thing is, this happened in 2007, so you're sitting there telling me, you know, 17 years ago, you're worried about this being a problem, you know? And this is on pieces of equipment that you're telling me has one incident in 24 years or whatever, you know, 17 years, you know? And you're saying that incident is the basis for this code change in 2020. And to me, I was fine with it. The problem was the transparency. There wasn't transparency. Well, now all of a sudden, here we come in 2023. We're already in 2023. They pushed it through. We got into the 2023. It's got into the 2020. So it's been through 2 code cycles, and it's never really been enforced here in Colorado. I don't think it's ever really been enforced in Texas.
Nope.
But like, you sit there and they're like, oh, well, they're not enforcing it because they're not compatible. Okay, well, then it needs to be deleted, you know? And the thing is that's fine if they want to just put a boat anchor into the code and, like, think they're just going to push their weight and everything. But the problem is that now, with 2026, my public input, they actually mentioned the death by electrocution as their example. And I'm like, okay, number one, that's abnormal use of equipment. That's not covered by the National Electric Code. Number 2, that's a code violation of 2005 NEC, which was the current code at the time. Number 3, it's not going to be compatible with all equipment for January 1st, 2026, when the 2026 edition gets submitted and is going into place. So to me, that's grounds enough just to delete 210.8F.
Yeah. And like you said, one of the things that I keep coming back to is usually when they look at making a change, there's a reason. There's technical merit there to do so. They didn't have the technical merit to do what they did because the kid that got killed was due to improper wiring, and it wasn't wired correctly. And the other one,
abnormal use of equipment. You can't sit there and force a manufacturer to put steel grates on every unit that they make just because kids could jump on them. Correct. That's ridiculous.
And you know, the other 2 or 3, I don't remember how many now, but deaths that happened were due to maintenance issues, and they wasn't following 70E. and that, they got across something. If they'd have been applying the 70E standard for safety in the workplace, that wouldn't have happened either. So, they gave these instances, but these instances had nothing to do with equipment. The equipment didn't fail. That was causing the problem. What happened is due to other errors. And, for them to take something like that and then just automatically put it in, I don't agree with that. And then I'll take another step further. They didn't even consider the compatibility issues. And here in Texas, it freaking gets hot in the summer. If that breaker's tripping, guess what? You got old people and stuff. They die of heat. They come in and said it's a safety issue. Well, no, you created more of a safety issue. And if there were people that died from that, I don't know if there's anything on there that any information if that did happen. But to me, that could be a bigger problem than what they were trying to require.
Yeah, and we covered this too. There was I thought it was like somewhere in the neighborhood of like 700 deaths nationwide when they tried to put this in. And that was the whole reason for putting the task group on it, to try to test the compatibility. And I think the task group said that there was just like way too many that were incompatible. And then that's the reason that the Standards Council decided to put the overall exception in for incompatible equipment. I could tell you right now, the AHJ Colorado was like, nope. They're like, we don't care. Like, if it's, the thing is, it's too hard to like sift through to have like 4 inspections for like one AC unit and then be like, well, it has this UL sticker, it has this different thing, and that stuff's really tough. And state of Colorado, they said nope, no thank you.